Hello everyone, my name is Brett Ryer. I'm an ambassador to Club Globals on the mission to connect technology to investors, to government, to some of the most inspiring entrepreneurs in the Barcelona ecosystem and beyond. And today we have a very inspiring entrepreneur with a very unique background, and Maria Jipa is the CEO of Olyn. First of all, thank you for having me at your beautiful office here in Barcelona. I can see books and charts and a buzzing environment all around, so congratulations on that. But there's a lot to unpack, so let's dive right into it. For so many reasons, it's important to understand the person behind Olyn and the people behind Olyn. And I see in doing my research about you and the company, I see so many pins on the maps. I see cancer research in Romania, I see aeronautics in Barcelona, I see some tied to New York, I see venture capital, I see Silicon Valley. How can you help us understand all these different places, what they mean to you along your journey? Help us connect these dots.
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity. My story, woof. Now that I gotta kind of go back in the past and think about it, all the time when I have to create a story about myself, it's almost like, oh my God, did I really did that back then? What the hell happened to me? But I was born in Romania, right? And my parents had to leave the country, and it was just like communism situations. So grew up in Germany, and then my parents moved to Spain, and kind of always felt like the world was global, and I had to adapt really fast to different situations and circumstances. So that sort of gave me a very rich experience from early on understanding things around me and create awareness. But I was really hungry for seeing more of the world, right? Because once we moved to Spain, we stood there. So at 18, as I started aeronautics, I wanted to get my own wings and see what the world has to offer aside from sitting on a chair and be a good student. And that's when I sort of started meeting a lot of people that were doing entrepreneurial activities in Spain, Barcelona particularly. And I remember the world startup was such a cool thing, but it wasn't even a thing you could find on a dictionary, right? It was
Right.
And as I was falling with my studies, the opportunity came along of a project in Romania, rad therapy. And the industry is quite linked with aeronautics too, when it comes to a radioactive engine for treatment for cancer. And that project, which is long story, but fascinating, gave me a chance to understand a lot about what it means to deal with public-private sector. Mm-hmm. That project led me to scholarship United States and performed a course at Stanford. And the lucky part was I was hired as an intern for a venture capital, and my role was to interview entrepreneurs and kind of fill a form, right? So Imagine this is back in 2012, 2011, when sort of there was a boom of startups. Mm-hmm. And that's when my whole reality changed. I realized that I felt so in tune with these people that their ideas were striking so high and so big, whereas somebody who will value their company at 10 million, in Europe back then as a student, you'll only use to 3 zeros perhaps and deal with those, right?
Yeah.
And then after that experience, a year after, I came back to Spain, joined a company very early on. They were trying to build an API management platform. And again, this was a huge opportunity. The company got acquired by Red Hat 3 years after, which gave me a chance to see how a startup gets to that point of growth.
Right.
And one thing after the other, I joined, I was hired by the Mexican government to help on a data management project in terms of how to treat data in order to improve security for citizens. Fascinating project. Again, it gets very rooted into how internet works at a very high level.
Right.
Intelligence. But then back again, sort of get back to the VC side of things. And this time as a partner for a fund that was based in San Francisco in taking part of the European side of things. And yes, you look at this story and you're like, what the hell? Like, there's so many things, right? And I guess it's all about character. My way of being was never saying no to anything and be participant on things that have a direct impact. And as soon as like I had a chance that presented itself, like I would never say no. Now looking at like now that we're building Olin, a lot of those experiences come back to me and it's like, oh, it made sense. Like if I wouldn't have done that, like I would have known this, or I wouldn't know that, or I wouldn't be empathic with this situation or the other.
Yeah, one of the things that I take out of that story, one of the many, is it seems like probably one of the most valuable things that you picked up was during that time of like hubris and exuberance in 2011, 2012, when people were coming up with all these crazy ideas, and you were seeing all of these ideas basically land on your desk, but that probably gave you the opportunity over so much time to actually identify true value, as well as probably picking up on the passion and the curiosity, no matter how exuberant the idea might have been, but right. The curiosity and the passion that these guys were seeking
right.
in their startup business plans and everything like that. So, to me that sounds very interesting. And because you have all these pins on the map, you probably, and also our audience being a very global audience, you probably have a very unique perspective on this. How do you see, now that you're in Barcelona, in the startup ecosystem, as a CEO, how do you see the Barcelona ecosystem versus other ecosystems around the world, with the likes of London or Berlin, even if you're not familiar with Berlin, but Silicon Valley, New York, etc. How do you see Barcelona as an ecosystem in comparison to these others, and maybe the benefits or the differences, the pros and the cons?
Olyn is an international, like it's a U.S. company, and it targets at a global level. Like the product, it's meant to be global from day one, and because we have presence in U.S. and Barcelona, perhaps I can pick up on like what's the main difference, right? But also depends, like when you're building product, what's your market and where you're targeting. Like if it's an European audience versus like an American audience, like it's very different the way you will approach it. As for the entrepreneurial part, like as I said, like depends who's your customer. So if you're trying to be really innovative, and for example, in my case, like professionally, and my passion is really product. And product linked to people's psychology and people's behaviors, and like anything that applies to game theory. So if you walk in the street and you wonder, hey, if any of these people are going to use ever things like I'm thinking of or I'm trying to build, it's a big difference if you're walking in the streets of New York or if you're walking in the streets of Barcelona. Most likely, like you will not sort of predict that like these people will be your customers in the end. Like things get a little late in Europe, right? To get that velocity of launching and have that audience that will be early adopters, right, to the same extent like happens in US. But nonetheless, as an environment, I think that like Barcelona particularly like has a lot to offer when it comes to tech, but there's a lot more to do, maybe to get to the level that like Austin or San Francisco was at once. It's not the same anymore. But Miami or New York are like picking up on.
Right. Okay. Let's go ahead and fast forward to Olyn. Well, we're excited to hear about the company, the technology. So as far as what I have here, I'm going to let you do most of the explaining, but this is what I have. Olyn is a company that utilizes Web 3.0, NFTs, and blockchain, which are all the big buzzwords in the market right now, for good or bad, but all the major buzzwords in the market. So first, please tell us in your own words, what is Olyn? What is its mission? What are you guys doing?
We come from the perspective of ownership matters, right? And today you hold titles of ownership of your car, your property, if some... maybe some art, right? And you hold a certificate of ownership, which empowers you to have the opportunity to trade those assets in the future, right? But nothing else. And we kind of start with the idea that in the future, everything can be owned, right? From digital assets, physical assets, right? Any sorts of assets. So what are those? Well, you can own your physical things, your digital things, your behaviors, your data, your identity, right? And we've been hearing a lot more of these trends, like ownership economy. It's quite one of the biggest discussions that I found most fascinating when it comes to the future. And Olyn, it's basically an asset registry that enables the tokenization of these assets that will refer to those as unique, enabling owners to build an inventory of things by holding into the title of the asset. Now, as we've been developing this technology, sort of my way of thinking product is like, that's great, right? Everything is going to be identified. That's a hell of a job, right? But for us is that all this word sounds amazing. Blockchain, Web3, right? As you said, buzzwords, NFTs. But ultimately, like, I remember hearing one of these discussions that was saying that we've had our economy built sort of, and then financial systems came and like build themselves on top of economy models, right? And at some point, like when the economy is detached from the financial system, right, and they go on their own, kind of creates this disadvantage on the investors that, or those that like hold a lot of money and assets versus those that don't, like, and markets get to be separated. But I kind of want to use that analogy saying that, well, the thing is, all those buzzwords are trying to solve problems that we're dealing with and create more opportunities for everybody. And in this case, when it comes to Web3 itself, is nothing but like an evolution of the internet by bringing value into the space. So right now we're just exchanging information, but what if we treat information as value? Doesn't matter in what format that comes from. If I'm exchanging you a physical thing in exchange of like some fiat currency, or if you decide to pay crypto, or if I'm asking you a thing and you are returning me an opinion, right? Those are exchanges that like we could consider value. And as we've been like in the company, we've been looking more and more into this space. It's, well, in the digital world, it's pretty much like linear. Only transactions happen. But in the real world, we actually generate a value exchange. I pay you money, you give me the thing. In the digital world, I pay you money, but I only get a proof that that transaction has happened, and it moves in time and space just ahead, right? So for us is building that value exchange at the time of transaction, which means like asset being registered at the time of purchase, enabling you to capture ownership, and you building an inventory of those assets at the time of purchase. That said, like, we're an API platform, and what we're targeting, it's so big that we expect for the basis of the asset registry to have other developers coming in to us and building on top of this asset registry platform to enable other solutions.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so in a sense, you're kind of democratizing the consumer's ledger or balance sheet to capture more of that value that they actually do have, but typically institutions or other people, for that matter, just didn't have access to that in themselves. Either it wasn't accurate, the quality of the information was not up to date, or just unknown completely.
Right.
So that leads me to my next question, though, because what does this have to do with blockchain? Why build an API over blockchain Web 3.0 as opposed to using the traditional API over the traditional internet?
Right. And back to like the other question, when you use, I like because you said like those are buzzwords, NFTs, blockchain, right, tokens.
Right.
And I guess like for me was, okay, as if if internet has always been a support to tackle big problems, like in terms of supply chain or in terms of communication, in terms of money. But right now, as we're coming up with these Web3 terms and all sorts of innovations along it, are we actually solving real problems? And Olyn came with a strong argument of saying, well, blockchain can be very useful for what we understand today as like challenges towards circular economy, right? And how we can use this technology to enable people to be more participants in what we understand the circular economy and extend asset lifespans by enabling them to be first managed, right? So how do people have enough tools out there to actually be participant of the circular economy, and how blockchain can serve to the problem?
Right.
And we at beginning, when we started, we asked ourselves, do we really need blockchain for this? So the interesting thing is that blockchain brings something into the game that no other technology have been able to. So the fact like you can uniquely identify something, it defines not only that thing is unique by its token, but also it enables programmability. Like I can build in within scarcity. I can add actually royalty attached to the asset, which means like if the asset gets to be exchanged in the future, me as a creator, I'll get a percentage of it back to me. And all these other like ways of gamifying, right? Bringing more things into the game, right? And I think that's when it's becoming fun, right? Because right now, you go and you purchase an asset and you save it into your wallet and sorry, that hasn't happened yet. It will.
Oh, okay.
You go, you buy something, you get a ticket, you get a receipt, and you save it, and that's all. You open the package, and you have a bunch of paper in there, and like, hey, why all this cannot be digitized? Like in our ideal world, you go and purchase something, and you get the asset identity saved into your wallet, and then that asset identity becomes also like its digital package, where you have all the digital manuals, guarantee, warranty, everything in it, right? And then not only like third parties can deliver more solutions on top of it. Like imagine if right now I can rent this asset, like I buy a bike and I want to rent it, like then insurance companies can top up a system around this asset that can be insured in case like I'm changing status to being rented.
Right.
So as you can see, like a lot of things come into the game, and it's when it's becoming to be fun for the buyer, as it's not a consumer anymore, it's a keeper that has enough tools to play around with those things. I like to call it like, you know, like a bundle of sticks, like that. Yeah. Those are the chips in the table that you have. Mm-hmm. So you can trade and play with it, right?
Right, okay, understood. So this next question that I have for you then is a bit of a two-part question, two sides of the coin, I should say. So one side of the coin is it's focusing on Olin and the positive trends that are out there on the macro level. What positive trends that are happening on the macro level can you explain to us that are driving this need for circular economies, circular kind of consumerism to take hold? And then on the other side of that coin, what emerging technologies do you see as potential threats, whether that's quantum computing or 3D printing or financial institutions coming up with something else? I don't know. So major macroeconomic trends that are driving this forward, right. And then some major threats that you might see.
So we're living kind of at times right now, right? Like you kind of like start reading the news and you see supply chain crisis, right? You got a war going on, like inflation, circular economy, climate change. Like it's all like sort of like, you know, coming all at once. And we live times that everyone is aware and willing to be participant of the change. Like there's no other way. We already been like on part of a system that it worked so far, but it cannot work the same way anymore. And that creates a market opportunity for those that have the stamina, right, and the ambition enough to come up with solutions that altogether are going to target particularly those things, right? So we have blockchain in all of their solutions because there was like this financial situation that we all faced back in 2007. It's like, voila, like we need to find out other ways of doing things. So looking from the like perspective of humanity, like I think all of us, we want to be participant. Like I want to be a better citizen. I want to be a better like consumer in a sense. But where are the tools? Where are all these things? So
Right.
And those trends is what has created for Olin particularly like a unique opportunity door to say like, oh, what we're bringing along, it solves a big problem. Because if you want to kind of resell this asset or like put it in circulation, it takes a lot of time from you. You got to like pick up a platform where to do it in a centralized way, recreate its asset information once again, which once upon a time was actually on the internet because like you might have purchased that way. And it's like how you can create this continuity where what comes around goes around, and like everything, like if it even goes to waste, like will have its particular path. And as threats itself, I don't see anything as a threat, like or like quantum computing or threats perhaps is like the old school sort of like corporates that will like do whatever to keep things the way they are. Right. And defend their current methodologies and current ways of doing things, which will never put a discussion to target the subject of, hey, are we people and citizens and entrepreneurs incentivized by the right model of incentivization that is out there? Yeah. And right now it's like, hey, everyone wants more capital, everyone wants more things, because the more things you have, the better you look, or the better people are going to look at you. And so it's like, why? And I can see like things are changing. Like people are feeling very proud of buying secondhand clothes, and that's sort of like a very like 10 years ago you would have bought a piece from secondhand marketplace in Barcelona at least, and that would not be something you'll be proud of or speak about it.
Okay, so one other aspect of this is considering what so many people associate blockchain with, which is crypto. And so in the recent, I don't want to say demise, but decline of the crypto valuations across all the major coins that have been happening over the past 3 to 6 months, how important is it for you to differentiate or separate what you're doing with the blockchain technology versus what so many other people associate blockchain technology with, which is crypto?
Yeah, I encourage everyone who has sort of very strong arguments against it to do research to understand the difference, right? I think blockchain is an incredible technology that enables new market economies to spark along, right? And brings great ideas at the table, right? There's a big difference between crypto and token, right?
Right.
Like token is nothing but a title of ownership over something. And in this case, like NFT is like pointing at something that it's unique. And crypto like could be very much linked to you being enabled to purchase something, like the act of buying. It's very different from the act of owning, right? The title of ownership over something.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, sure.
So those will be the two main differences that I will like to target when it comes to, hey,
right.
I hear a lot, mostly in Europe. This won't happen much in US, but I was attending a conference recently in Europe, and a lot of people will say like, oh, Anna, like there's not investors here that would be interested in Olin because like they're not interested in crypto, right? And
exactly, yeah.
And that's when I was like, well, too bad for them, because man, this is really the future. and it's happening, right? It's happening. But I think also coming up with words is what it's happening. Like right now, it's not as fancy to call it blockchain, let's call it Web3 or like NFT, well, tokens.
Right.
Everything will like shape, right? But the importance is to understand what does that thing enable me to do, and why does it even exist? And it's true that like we've went through the wave of FOMO, right? And like we've seen NFTs everywhere, and we've seen like, and almost like people be allergic to kind of like, don't talk to me about it. But at the same time, I think like like whatever happened in the past, it's a great experiment to show and display like, hey, people care about this. And we're talking about like what, like $780 million are like trading like Bitcoin. Like,
Yeah.
we're not talking about sort of cents here. We're like talking about voice of vote. So I think like when people chooses all these technologies, they also are having a tone of vote on like, this is what we want and this is working, right?
Okay, another buzzword that that's going around quite often right now, which is Metaverse. Are you guys, maybe there is something to it, maybe not, but are you guys exploring this? Because to me it seems like the Metaverse and what it's promised to be in the future may be a really big aspect of the way of the business, the product that you're explaining in Olin. So are you guys exploring it? Are you keeping close eyes on it? How do you see yourselves kind of intertwining with the Metaverse or multiple Metaverses?
Right. So Metaverse, I think like it's a great, like wherever it's happening with the immersive experience through the like Google lenses, or like it's you immersing yourself in a sort of like experience of engaging through video gaming, right, and games. And I gotta say, like any single sort of innovation that has happened, it has started as a game somehow. So games are a very, very good way of unfolding wanted behaviors. From my perspective, like today, in a certain way, we are already in the metaverse, because if you are somewhere in the world and I happen to be here and I'm sending you a WhatsApp text, like I'm interacting with you through the digital rails, right? So I'm immersing myself through those like, but if we, like now that you use the word metaverse, if you have to think of today, you getting immersed in the back end side of things and existing in there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're pretty much sort of, imagine you wandering around. I think like what you could see is like this world full of doors, and you're completely a ghost, and you knock on one, that at the door it says Uber, right? And this is the first time you go in there and Uber gives you like, hey, fill the papers,
right,
show me this is who you are, this and that, right?
Yeah.
And you go and hang out with all the Ubers, right? And use the service. But you don't want that anymore. You walk out of Uber and right now it's like, oh, I want to rent a place. And you go and knock at the door of Airbnb. But meanwhile, you walk around like you're somebody else depending on the door you cross. So I knock at the door of Airbnb and Airbnb like rates me in a certain way. And like Uber will rate me in another way. Like Twitter as like a certain, I build myself a certain reputation on Twitter.
Right.
But as soon as I'm stepping back from that environment, like I'm completely like, I'm a ghost. So using the analogy of metaverse, if today I kind of use these games and I walk into the metaverse, what I will find out is that there is one me that truly exists and navigates through all this world without being like a collection of doors and like, like, because that's how I perceive internet today. So what does metaverse bring into the discussion? Well, we need like, people need their own identity to be portable and to carry it all around, right? People need like, so as you can see, like those are very aligned topics with what's going on today. Like, custodian wallet, non-custodian wallets, like being able to generate loyalty programs, capture back them, like holding on into all these coins. But I'm not sure like if the analogy kind of works out, but I think that Metaverse is teaching us a great lesson. Olin, like, we do think that the Metaverse, it's a great thing to look at, but as a technology, like, we have not yet developed. But what we do have, well, that's not true. So
If it's confidential information
No.
under research, you don't have
Like,
to. You don't
no,
have
the
to
thing
delve
is
into
like,
it now.
so the thing is like, there are some, so there will be some players, there will be some people in the space that would say, well, NFTs and all that stuff and where it's going on is just for the metaverse, and exclusively try to, instead of looking at the metaverse as an analogy that is trying to fix how backend works currently, right?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
We do connect with like what's metaverse today. So, for example, let's say you purchase like a pair of shoes at Nike store, right? You get the token, you hold it on your wallet, but some developer has built up sort of a tool to the sneakers where you can also wear them on a game. So
Yeah. Right.
treating that like it enable you to fractionalize the usability of this asset across different spaces.
Right.
In this case, metaverse.
Right. So the one constant as you go from door to door might just very well be the asset registry, the ledger.
Yeah.
That these people, these consumers are carrying with them. That never changes.
So that's the concept of portability. Like, how can I attract things to me and walk with those around as I'm knocking at different doors that give me different experiences, but not necessarily own my identity, own my things, my everything, and I'm just walking around with nothing. I think like there's nothing more rewarding than like having the chance in life to be part of something like this. So, as I said, really excited.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Anna.
Thank you.
So that's Anna. I'm Brett, and thank you very much.